You're watching Woodworkers the podcast, a production of the Kansas City Woodworkers. Host Kevin Thomas.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Woodworkers podcast. Today we've got a special guest with us today from author and all-around great woodworker, Matt Kenney. Welcome to Kansas City.
Thank you. I am happy to be here. I'm glad y'all invited me. It's been a great time so far.
I'm going to get you started with what we usually try to start everybody with when we do this. How did you get your start in woodworking?
Yeah, so I guess in a way I've been woodworking most of my life. My dad, when he was working, was a contractor in Florida where I grew up. And so we would help around the house, we being my brother and sisters. Whether it was helping my dad build a boardwalk, or when I was around 10 years old, I helped him build a shed from foundation to shingles. And my brother and I we built a tree fort for ourselves once. And then when we were older, when we were teenagers, we in the neighborhood, other neighborhood boys our age would build skateboarding ramps, street ramps and half pipes. Mm-hmm. So from an early age, I was making stuff with my hands. But then I didn't really do anything until I was about 28 years old, and I made a gardening box as a gift for Christmas for someone. And I just made it with, construction lumber and some tools I bought at, box home centers. Mm-hmm. But it sparked something, and I started to make more things. Mostly, I made a couple of ring boxes. I made a television cabinet. And then before my first daughter was born, or my only daughter, I should say, my first kid was born, I made a crib for her on the balcony overlooking on the back of the condo I was living in at the time. And when I finished with graduate school, I was teaching philosophy, and one of my students asked me one day if I liked to make furniture because I talked about it all the time, and I said yeah, and she invited me to meet her dad, who is a professional furniture maker. And he and I hit it off. He lived about 30 or 40 miles from me. His name's Joe Mazurik. He lives in Camden, South Carolina. So Joe and I hit it off, and he kept inviting me back out to his shop. And over the course of about 2.5 years, Joe taught me how to make furniture.
When did you decide that woodworking was going to be your career?
Well, it was around that, not long after I met Joe. As I mentioned, I was a college professor, and I was looking for a job as a college professor. A tenure track job is what they call them. It's like a permanent job, and they were hard to come by in my specialty, which was Greek philosophy. So one year, I agreed with my then wife to look for a job outside of academia, and having known Joe for a while and knowing the difficulty of making it as a professional furniture maker, I decided to look for something that involved woodworking, but would also provide me with a steady paycheck. So I started looking at the different woodworking magazines to see if they would have a position open as an editor, and Fine Woodworking did. It took me about a month to decide. I didn't care whether or not they weren't interested. I sent in my application, and it turns out they were interested, and I ended up getting the job. And so I started working there in 2008.
Now, is writing something that came easy to you? Because you've written a couple of books, and you've got...
I don't know if writing came easy to me, but I've written for a long time. So as an undergraduate student at a liberal arts college, I wrote a lot of papers, and I had to talk in class a lot because we had small discussion-oriented classes. And there's not much difference between talking and speaking. It's a matter of, organizing your thoughts, distilling it into something that's concise and clear, and then articulating it. And so by the time that I left academia, I had written a lot. I'd written a dissertation, which is essentially a book. And then when I went to the magazine, I really began to learn the finer points of professional writing and editing. So it's not something that necessarily came easy to me. It's something that I learned how to do through the years. But it was a lot of my ability, my writing, whatever ability I have for it, really grew out of what I learned as a professor and as a teacher of woodworking, of communicating with people in person.
Any advice for any of our aspiring writers out there?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is to write about things that you're passionate about, things that you care about. Because if you don't care about them, there's no way that you can write about them in a way that will make someone else care about them. So the things that I do now professionally, make furniture, teach woodworking, write about woodworking, are all things that I'm extremely passionate for. And I think that, part of being a good communicator is being able to express that passion and excitement for what you're doing. You can't do that if you're writing about things you're not passionate for. So if you want to write about woodworking, think about what it is in woodworking that really excites you. And think a lot about what it is that you want to tell people, what it is you want to share with them, and why they would be interested in it. Why would someone be interested in this technique that you know, or this particular style of furniture that you like? And then I always, people who have trouble writing, I usually say, well, don't write, talk. Just record yourself talking as if you were explaining it to a friend, and then go back and write, transcribe that into the written word, and that's the start.
That's an interesting idea. Now, the class you're teaching this week is based out of your book, 52 Boxes in 52 Weeks?
Sort of, yeah. It's yeah. That's a fair way to put it, I guess.
What was the idea behind that book?
So back in 2015, the book, the basic idea of the book was I'm going to make 52 boxes during the course of a year. And the impetus for it, there's actually several different reasons why I did it. But the core one is that I realized that in order to become a better furniture designer, I needed to design and make to completion more pieces of furniture. And but to make a complete piece, full-size piece of furniture like a chest of drawers, is a big undertaking. And so the way that you really get good at something, whether if you want to become better at baseball, you go out and you practice fielding grounders or fielding fly balls every single day over and over and over again. If you want to become a better distance runner, you do it by running every single day and running lots and lots and lots of miles. So if you want to become a better furniture maker and a better designer, you have to get in the repetitions. And I already loved to make boxes at the time. So I realized that I could probably make a box a week. And if I could do that for a year, I would have made 52 boxes. That would have been a lot of repetition. And I thought that would jumpstart or push me farther, along the learning curve of becoming a better designer and a better technical box maker. So that's the core of the idea, but there were other reasons why I did it.
I know you've got it working on a new book now.
I've just completed a new book that is probably on its way to the print now, or like next week or something.
What can you tell us about it?
So the first book that I wrote was really about how to design, like how I tried to become a better designer. and it was about boxes. So I learned a lot about making boxes while I was doing that. So this book, the new book, is about how to make boxes. So there's sort of like companion books. You know, one's about designing, one's about making.
So what's the title of this forthcoming book?
So the next book that's coming out is called Build Better Boxes, and it is a companion to my first book, 52 Boxes in 52 Weeks. That book was about designing boxes, and the new one is about everything I learned making all of those boxes plus all the other boxes I've made through the years. And it's about how to make them. And the idea is that if I show you the fundamentals of sound box making, that you'll be inspired to go out to the shop and design and make your own boxes.
Do you have ideas for the next book after that?
Yeah, so that would be book number 4. My second book is The Art of Kumiko, and that came out in 2020. So the fourth book, actually, yeah, my publisher and I have already been discussing it, and that is about, so this is something we've talked about this week in class, this idea that to really be a good furniture maker, you're like the conductor of an orchestra in which you're also playing all of the instruments. So, because making good furniture isn't about simply cutting dovetails or applying a finish, it's about overseeing the entire process from beginning to end and taking all those individual things and bringing them together to create something that is more than the sum of the parts. And so the next book will be sort of like a deep dive into how you go about making a piece of furniture from beginning to end. So from design stage to the lumber yard, to the milling process, to the finishing. How you go about managing all of those steps and producing a piece of furniture that is beautiful, is meaningful, and is something that both you and your descendants or your client and your client's descendants will want to keep around. And there'll be like maybe 5 or 6 different pieces of furniture in the book that we cover different aspects of that process with.
That sounds interesting. I'm looking forward to that one. Have you enjoyed your time in Kansas City so far?
I have enjoyed my time in Kansas City so far. I guess I've been here for a little over 48 hours. I've had some good meals and 1 or 2 enjoyable beers. And the class has been fun. It's all great students, and it's not too hot, it's not too humid, so it's all good.
Well, Matt, if someone wants to know more about your work and your books and so forth, where do they go?
Well, the 2 best places to see what I'm up to, the first would be my Instagram account, which is at MEK Woodworks,
Okay.
Which is MEK, my initials. And I post there regularly, and I post about my teaching, I post about what I'm writing, and I also just show what I'm up to in the shop. So what am I making right now, things like that. The other place would be my website, which is mekwoodworks.com, and there you can go and buy my first 2 books right now. Soon the 3rd book will be available in a limited edition, limited number hardback edition. And you can also buy things related to my second book, which is about Kumiko, a Japanese decorative art, and you can buy, the jigs that you need to make it. You can buy kits to make different panels that I designed. So that's the other place to go check me out. So Instagram and my website.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Now we're going to go to our final 3 questions.
Okay.
This will be 3 simple answer questions that are not necessarily about woodworking.
All right.
First off, dovetails, pins first or tails?
Well, I am not a savage, so I cut them tails first.
Okay. Kansas City barbecue, yes or no?
Well, what I've had so far has been delicious. So yeah.
And the last question, Marvel or DC?
Marvel or DC? Well, I mean, I'm not a big comic book person, but I will say that with the exception of the Christopher Nolan Batman films,
Okay.
the Marvel films are fantastic.
Okay.
Especially Thor Ragnarok, directed by Taika Waititi. That is just an absolutely great film.
Yeah, it's always great when you have a sense of humor that's worked into the storyline.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for today. We want to make sure that you remember to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss any more gripping commentary. And remember, as always, to work safe and get your sawdust on. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.